I'm on .112.
Okay.
And then will we be able to use that chair when
You're
Lathan
going
comes
live.
in? Awesome sauce.
You said 112.
I'm not going to make it. Yep. Whee!
Oh, I have it go underneath that cable there.
Waiting for switcher.
Yep.
Hopefully that's enough.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
I
we're-
just got notification from YouTube, so that's good. Got
We're just in.
notification on JP, Kathy, and the crew.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chambrielle. Nope, I'm still. This is the weirdest thing. Ever since I did one of my updates, I cannot get my iPad to. I can't do comments. I can't like anything on my Facebook on there. So, good times, good times.
Yep, now I'm controlled by the iPad.
Yeah, do not get me started on Facebook. Do not. Facebook.
You're not on Facebook yet, and you're kind of pixelated.
Yep, we're live. So,
Our
Dr.
voice
Good.
is.
Well, we're live, but FB is jacking with Kathy, and now FB is starting to jack with me on my phone too. So it's not just
I
poor
can't
Dr.
like,
Be Good.
I can't comment. The only way I can do it is on my phone. Yeah, I've got to be hooked up to Wi-Fi.
It's impacting my show too. I'll tell you why off the air. But
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I can't comment during our show because my phone screen's too little, and it's just easier to be on my iPad. So it really is bothering me.
Time to share.
I'm with you.
Let's share.
Good morning to the crew. Oh, I see Charles.
Time to share.
Charles
the
is grabbing
love.
some coffee, and then we've got Dr. B. Ask Dr. B. Good. You have to put the ask in front of it.
We the people. The silent majority. Today we're going to go into the DFW teachers group.
Woohoo! Well, we've got our educational experts, so we shall.
We do.
Should. We should.
I think I just burped online.
Oh, now you didn't have to tell anybody that.
I think I did. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring, Dr. Good.
No, not with that.
COVID.
Not with COVID. Well, I'm not sharing my COVIDs. I'm keeping those to myself.
Share your burps either.
That was unintentional.
Oh, goodness.
That was one of those surprises.
When people share COVID, it's unintentional.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I think for some it is. I think some don't care. All right, let's see here.
Could do this.
And we added the BRS group to our groups, by the way, Kathy.
Woohoo! Who's that?
They're a running group,
I like it.
so I'll have to give them a shout out. Oh, and I've got a great idea, by the way. When I'm done with
What
my
is
call with
that?
Colleen this morning, I'll tell you.
Groovy.
And it puts Chambrielle out on location.
Oh, Chambrielle would be great out on location.
This is a wedding venue up in Blue Ridge. And so I'm going to have her go out on
Her
location.
out in the field with her cute smile. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're either going to love Faye for getting her you hooked up with us, or you're going to be like, Faye, let's talk.
I'm going to have to throw her a couple bucks for gas money.
Oh, no. Yeah, we'll hook her up with that. Yeah, so, oh, good morning.
Oh,
yeah,
and,
we need to have a pet corner because I need to talk about Kira and 3 animals she attacked in our backyard.
Oh. Why, thank
she's
you,
a hunter.
Charles.
Thank you, Charles. Mwah! Good morning.
Thank
Good morning
you,
to the
Charles.
crew.
Hello
I wanted to say
the
happy
Charles.
Monday, but I can't say that.
It's Happy Wednesday.
Monday was Columbus Day. It's Wednesday.
It's Dr. Good time.
It's Dr. Good's Day.
From Puerto Rico.
Oh, fancy.
So, yeah, I wanted to talk about one of my pet parent peeves today. And, you know, I don't often talk about
From
parent
Venture
peeves. Parents are our
Studios,
friends, and we try to
it's
develop
JP, Kathy, and the crew.
a prison
Live
of
from
guilt.
I hear.
Charles is messing with our microphones. There
I
you
hear.
go. Good morning, Dr. Good. All right, now I can hear her now.
I can hear Dr. Be Good. Hello, Dr. Be Good.
It went bad just as I started talking.
Huh.
We were doing the intro.
Oh, Charles had to do the intro.
We were doing the intro.
Yes, the official
Let me
intro.
see. If I do this, is it better?
No,
Oh,
we
no,
love
no,
you
you're good.
live.
No, we want you live.
Is it better now?
Oh,
We can hear
sound-wise,
you.
yeah,
You
you're
sound
good
great.
sound-wise.
Okay, so go back. Start your story over.
Well, first let me start this.
Okay.
Good morning to the crew.
Good morning to the crew.
Happy Wednesday. We've got Dr. Be Good on with us this morning. She is our educational expert and
Yes.
superintendent in public schools. She's been on just about every show across the country, it seems like.
Goodness gracious,
talking about
yes.
education and COVID-19 and the impacts it's had. And I think today, Dr. Good, are we going to kick around getting prepared for college and all that fun stuff? Uh-oh. Did we lose her
Now
from
we've lost.
Puerto Rico? Well, we'll get Dr. Be Good back on.
We'll get her back on. She was on just
She
fine
was
during the
on.
beginning.
And so, of course, Kathy, you are appropriately dressed for Wednesday.
Well, because it's our political talk day. Plus, as the victory co-chair for the Collin County GOP, I've got my Collin County Republican Party hat on that I wore yesterday to poll greet. Have one of my patriotic scarves on, so we're rocking and rolling. Oh, we also have Lathan Watts from First Liberty on, and he will be talking about the Supreme Court appointment and the judicial hearings that are going on right now, the Senate judicial hearings. Lots to talk about there. James Seller, our
James
good
Sellers,
friend
Sightmark.
from Sightmark.
Yep.
Very excited to have him. He's going to be talking about the importance
Make your
of,
mark.
And make your mark in this voting session for president, because if you want the right to bear arms, you've only got one choice.
Absolutely.
So, your ability to protect yourself and your home and your family, that's on the line. So, there you go. And liberty is on the line.
Liberty, Lady Liberty. Speaking of Lady Liberty, do we have Lady Education back yet?
Lady education, I love that.
Yeah, I want to get Lady Education back. Ouch, I just stepped on my own headset. How does that happen?
Do we have her back?
Dr. Be Good.
Is this better?
Oh,
Hey,
look
you're
at you,
back.
boy.
Woohoo!
I don't know
Hey.
what happened. I opened my mouth at one time.
Well, I'll tell you what, that island life looks good on you. Look at you.
Okay, so to waste no more time, let me go ahead and start again. I have a pet parent peeve today. I don't have many parent peeves because parents are our friends and we try to establish relationships with them every way we can. And in the end, this will be, if they hear the information, I think we can establish an even stronger relationship, no matter your school district. And that is parents whose kids are starting to go into middle school and high school.
Right.
You don't really pay attention. You don't attend the college and career readiness meetings. You don't attend the counselor meetings. Or if you do, you sort of go, but you don't attach things. You don't align things, right? And so what I'm bringing today is the understanding that if you want your child to have really a college career readiness
Path
experience
or
that's
trajectory.
really positive college and career readiness trajectory, then you, parent, need to become an advocate for your child. We have to remember most counselors in big districts have 400 kids in the high school. And so there's no way that your child is going to get quality attention without you making quality noise, okay? And so here's my suggestions to you, and I could do a whole show on this, and I probably should, but starting in 6th grade, you should be asking the school, hey, can we have a meeting with the counselor on the alignment between our middle school and the high school? What are the endorsements that the high school, that this middle school is aligned to? What endorsements do they offer? What are the choices? And when is my child going to be shown the overview to the endorsements during middle school, so that my child can then make the choice? Because the children have to pick their endorsement towards the end of 8th grade for their 9th grade year. And so the kids should not be expected to make a choice in February or March, which is about when the choice cards come out. the choice sheets, and without having had lots of prep around it, right? Let's say there are lots of endorsements, and high schools cannot, except maybe at high school, but most even comprehensive high schools can only offer a smattering of what's really out there. But let's say that the high school that this middle school goes on to has business and health science and information technology, and then interdisciplinary studies. Interdisciplinary, sort of a catch-all,
Right.
If they didn't get there in ninth grade, but still allows them to graduate on time. So in a perfect world, and this is what parents need to find out if their kids do live in a perfect school world, that the kids are given overviews of the endorsements in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And they, in 6th grade, it could just start, the counselors could just start talking about that during their counselor time, their guidance counselor time, to say what's coming up, and possibly give the 6th graders a career inventory, which is a little test of what they like to do, right? And what they're good at. And so at the end of 6th grade, or during their 6th grade year, parents could get a copy of that interest inventory, and it shows that little Johnny is interested in things like blood and gore and medical stuff.
Okay.
Oh, good. We have this health science, and so Johnny may make a great vet or doctor, right? Or nurse. And so those conversations get started because the school has triggered that with a kid, triggered it with the parent. Now we're talking perfect school here. And then in 7th grade, they, and I'll just use the software. I'll talk about the software we use. There's a lot of people use it. It's called Naviance, and it's a college and career readiness software that kids can get on starting in 6th grade. And it's got not only the career inventory, but it gives kids the opportunity, starting in 6th grade, to build their college portfolio in it. And so once they take their interest inventory and they find out what they're interested in, let's say little Johnny is interested in becoming a doctor, I'll just pick the easy one, then the next thing the counselor would do is have Johnny start looking up what local schools have medical strands in them. How much does it cost? What are the courses? And what are the expectations of the school? And you do that. You see what I'm doing? I'm building this understanding in the kid to understand that there's no such thing as an easy doctorship, right? Or
Right.
easy vet, or easy business person, or easy anything. You have to build the steps, starting in middle school, then through high school, on to college, or vocational, or military. Because in the state of Texas, the schools must, or they get dinged, must have the majority of their kids go into either the military, a vocational school, or a college, or they will get dinged for not preparing kids for one of those.
And Dr. Good, I think that's a very good point. That's something all parents need to know. Again, if you're advocating for your child, then I think that's a very important part of information. My question is, what happens if you have kids who don't exactly know what they want to do? Now, some kids in junior high, they've already got proclivities towards one thing or another, or they already know, hey, I definitely want to do this, or, there are families that are military families, and it's just expected that when you turn 18, you'll go into, a certain branch of the military. What happens if you've got your kid who, does pretty good at grades and, good kid, and is in, a bunch of different extracurricular activities, none necessarily related to the other one, and they're just not sure? I kind of feel like, and I saw this back in the 90s when I taught, that it was incumbent upon the kids to be earlier and earlier and earlier deciding what their career was going to be. And I think at some point, can't you still be a 7th or 8th grader and be a kid?
So the state of Texas wants you to pick an endorsement. You have to.
Right.
But here's what I tell parents who tell me, my child wants to be a lawyer, not somebody in health science, not an IT person, not a business person. And I tell them, I would select IT because every child needs to know about information technology. You can use information technology
in
any
every
business
field,
career.
That's true.
Everything. So that's that is a foundational piece.
That's a good
In the
point.
next few years, we'll start teaching
Okay.
kindergarten because, so there's always something for our kids. The important thing that is the parent part here is that parents need to be asking the schools to make this all more transparent. Every school has this going on, but I will tell you, I just for the fun of it will ask my loved ones, family, friends, who have kids in either early high school or even late high school, tell me about your child's endorsement. Tell me, what are the counselors doing? And 9 times out of 10, it's deer in the headlight look.
Yep.
And so really what parents should be doing now is having a wake-up call to say, I need to, if my kid's in middle school, let's say whatever grade in middle school, I start with my child and see how informed my child is. If my child's not very informed, chances are the school hasn't done a transparent enough job with the child to align this pathway of college and career military vocational readiness. And so then the next step would be for the parent to go to the school and say, hey, counselor, let's chat. I have the understanding that you guys are building the foundation for high school endorsements, which then build the foundation for possible career pathways.
Right.
Can you talk to me about that? And have I been missing meetings? Have I missed communications on this? Are there going to be meetings?
Well, and especially during COVID, like it looks very different. My son's a junior. It looks very different than it did when my daughter was a junior. I mean, we were in meetings, anytime I was up volunteering at the school, I could pull a counselor or a facilitator or a principal aside and say, hey, I've heard this is going on next week. Is this worth going to? It's very different during COVID. College fairs, you've got them online.
And I will tell you, though, that now that I've started doing I started 4 or 5 months ago, having very regular parent meetings online.
Right.
I've grown them from 30 parents showing up in English to 150, and then in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Now I've got close to 130 Spanish speaking. So altogether, I have close to 300 or 400 parents showing up, which is not, it's only a third, but still, I'm reaching more parents than I ever have reached before. And so I would say to a school and the counseling department, you have an opportunity to actually reach more parents online than you would asking them to come into the building, even if we didn't have COVID. When we do our college and did our college and career readiness meetings to advise parents, and we would even have the junior college that the school connects to, that representative at the school to answer questions, talk about dual credit and all that. You get a smattering of parents showing up. And yet I think that if districts now go to online, they might have a lot more parents because it's so much easier to get online than it is to leave work early, get to school on time, all of that stuff, right? And so I challenge school districts to look at their college and career vocational military information communiques and say, are we reaching parents? Are we making sure that our middle school parents know what we're preparing their kids for as far as endorsements? Do our high school parents understand endorsements and dual credit, and that it's free? Most parents don't understand that if they had really, really started understanding this in middle school, they could have prepared their child mentally for and with the expectation of starting college, in some cases, like at our school, in 9th grade, free.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, which is huge.
Dr. Good, I've got to break in, and this has been the whole time you guys have been visiting back and forth. This has been running around in my head. Really the focal point has changed dramatically really over the last 2 years. I'm not even going to say COVID-19 has been the big striker on this, but there seemed to have been a shift where it almost, in the area that I've been in, with the schools I've been involved with, that it's almost been like, well, everybody now knows about this. They've got an online system that they can use and access, and we just expect our kids to pursue ... college, be college ready, and
trade school, whatever
it
the case
is.
may be.
And it seems like there's been a drop off in the let's reach out and have more conversation with our parents about being college ready. Has the focal point changed, and do we need to bring it back again? And again, I'm talking even pre-COVID-19.
Well, again, I pre-COVID, I would have had this same exact conversation. The only difference would have been that I feel like in COVID now, we have opportunity to reach more parents because the online world, it makes it so much more convenient for them to hop on. And certainly their job has trained them to Zoom or to Google Meet or whatever, platform is used. But I think it's now on the school to understand, embrace, and accept the fact that COVID can't continue to be the reason we don't do things. I'm in a hotel right now.
Good point.
And they cut out happy hour because of COVID. They've cut out sitting down at breakfast downstairs because of COVID. They've cut out so many things. And we went to a restaurant last night. They wouldn't bring bread out because of COVID. It's like, this is getting crazy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, welcome to the non-bread restaurant.
No breaking of the bread?
Right, no breaking of the bread. So, Dr. Good, let's come back around again. So we're in COVID-19. We have an opportunity. We have a captured audience, kind of more or less, right? In the idea that we can push the college readiness. Are we going to see universities and colleges pull back on freshman enrollment because of COVID-19?
Those are really good questions. And I will tell you that they haven't figured it out yet. My nephew is at Texas Tech doing hybrid, which to me is weird. You get a kid all the way to Lubbock in a dorm, and then you make it online.
He's online in his dorm. I still don't get
well,
that.
if we had this sound effect, I'd play it for you. Cha-ching.
That way you get to still charge for the dorm room and the food plan that goes with it. Chambrielle, who's our intern, is shaking her head, nodding in agreement with us.
Yeah, so the colleges haven't figured it out. And really in the most economic world, we would all do online high school, online college. Then we wouldn't need the buildings. We wouldn't need the people to clean the buildings. We would, all of a sudden that's scary though. That scares institutions because we're talking about a huge loss of income for as far as jobs, and just it's shaking up our understanding of how our world should work, and we haven't figured it out, and it'll be a few years before it's all figured out. I couldn't predict. We may want to just go back to the way it was, only because socially it might be better for us. And the only reason we figured that out is because we stayed home. We became unsocial and unsociable.
Yes.
And so we understood we needed to go back to our social world, even though it's more expensive in the long run. From a social standpoint, it may turn out to be the best thing for us and our kids.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because, Dr. Good, that ties into the mental health part of all of this. And that is that need, especially when you're younger. I've mentioned, my husband and I, we're in our 50s. So if we stay home on a Saturday and binge watch a show on one of the streaming services, that's cool. But back in the day, when your kids are young and they're growing up, they need to be going out to birthday parties and playing soccer and going to gymnastics and hanging out and going to Sunday school and all these different things. And even as you become a young adult, that's part of the makeup of who we are. We're social creatures, and especially when you're younger, and that's by God's design. And I think if we leave out, obviously the education part is huge. I mean, that determines, like you like to say, the economy that we'll be inheriting in the next generation. But that social part of it, you've got kids who are on, antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, and you've got kids committing suicide and things that just shouldn't be happening. And I think that's in large part due to that lack of social opportunities.
Well, I think over time we're going to figure that out with, unfortunately, the real numbers. We don't have real numbers right now. We don't have real data and research and evidence around all that. From a anecdotal viewpoint, I believe we'll have to go back to the buildings over time because socially it's the best thing for our kids. But unfortunately, sometimes we let our pocketbooks and our budgets drive things until it gets so bad that we have to, we have to put the money aside and look out for the well-being of the child, right?
Right.
And so
they're
still in the midst. It's still early.
Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Good, it's going to be interesting as universities and colleges are going through the process. In looking at the University of Florida, for example, the governor in Florida opened everything up. No masks, no nothing. Just go about your business. Encouraged the Miami Dolphins to go to full capacity in their stadium. The University of Florida, the head coach, has called for a full capacity stadium. His complaint was the Texas A&M fans changed the game for us, and we lost because of the fan base, because they had theirs and we didn't have ours. And so it's interesting, and now they've shut down the entire football program
had 19
in the University of Florida.
19 kids and staff on the
And
football team. Get
so here's the
COVID,
thing, right?
yeah.
And again, I go back to this, and I'm kind of shifting the conversation just a tad, but COVID-19 is not going anywhere. It's a virus, like the flu, like that mosquito biting thing that you can get and get really sick. What's that called? Help me out here. I'm drawing a
Not
blank.
Ebola. What was
Not Ebola. Ebola's nasty too.
Zika.
Yeah,
Thank you, Zika.
and-
Thank you.
I mean,
yes.
and there's another 100 other viruses out there that can get us. And so, are we overreacting to the extent that we should know who we need to protect those that we love, and keep them safe, and go about our business,
Well, if we could count on everybody to do, and I'll point to myself, I'm in that age group that is most susceptible, but I travel and I go about my day. I go to gyms every day. I was at the gym this morning for an hour before your show, and at a hotel. But I
Right.
wash my hands. I irrigate my nasal passages, and I eat healthy.
I was going to say, you also have the strongest immune system. I've got to interrupt you because you've got the strongest immune system. I mean, when I go to somebody I don't even go to the person at Herb Mart where I get all my vitamins and supplements anymore and ask them. I come in and they're like, do you need any help? I'm like, nope, Dr. Good gave me my list. Thanks. So, I mean, but that makes a big difference. You are taking personal responsibility for your health. Therefore, you've got a stronger immune system, probably than people half your age.
Okay, I'll take that.
Well, with that being said, you be safe in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, have fun. Send us a fun drink picture.
Well, you have a safe
From the
trip.
beach.
Happy camping out there with finding Spanish-speaking teachers, and be
Bilingual,
safe. And we'll see you when you
yeah.
get back.
Thanks, Dr. Good. We'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Have a
That's
good one.
Ask Dr. Be Good, our educational expert. Now we're going to throw Lathan Watts on here with First Liberty Institute.
Oh, he's gonna need a
Literally,
chair. Yeah, you
Charles, if I can have you go back and pick him up and throw him.
Literally.
At Kathy, that would be fantastic. He actually wore a tie today, so we might be able to grab him by his
Looks so
tie
nice.
and swing him around and then throw him up here, I guess. Some people, they get some half, some half knowledgeable institutes. We get the institute
We do.
with the knowledge, and we get
do.
one of their lead lawyers, Lathan Watts, from First Liberty Institute. And going to kick around a little bit. I like the way I said
and I
that,
wonder
by
if
the
you
way.
can sit here, and I wonder if we can. I think they're going to adjust the camera to you. Okay. So let's see if we can do that.
Well, we can probably do that. We're going to talk with Lathan about the Supreme
the
Court.
shovel
Yesterday's conversation with
the
Justice
last
Barrett.
2 days.
Well, day one was pretty good. I mean, they had some sidebar commentary, but Schumer and his crew of band of idiots really doesn't bother me too much.
You've become numb to them.
Oh God, yes. Are you kidding? I just go on about their business. Hey, good morning, Shay Drake. But let's get Lathan hot on his microphone there, and Lathan, see if you're hot on that deal.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You are hot. All right,
Do
we're
we
good.
do we need to swing him around, Charles, or is he okay where he is?
We'll take a little picture, look at him.
He's fine.
Well, I can't see him yet.
Yeah, he
That's
looks
because
good.
I haven't changed the picture.
Oh,
Get on her,
I'm
engineer.
so impatient.
Get on her, engineer. Get on her.
He's all dressed up nice and
Did
fancy
you have more
today.
coffee than you're supposed to today?
No, you made my coffee, and
That's true.
I think that dark
Now,
roast
do
makes
you
a
see him,
difference.
Kathy?
It could be. It's like that
I do
Colombian
see
roast.
him.
Okay.
I do
Yeah,
see him,
Lathan
but now I
looks
don't
good.
see JP.
Well, that's because that's the
No,
camera
that's
angle.
Because that's the camera.
Can we get
angle.
both camera
No.
angles?
Well, no, he'll go back to where we get a broad
can.
picture.
Look at me trying to direct the show, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Can you just sit there and be talented, please? So, Lathan, first of all, good morning. Welcome
Good
to JP,
morning.
Kathy, and the
Thanks
crew.
for coming in again.
Thanks for having me back.
So, Lathan, big testimony yesterday. Of course, they hit on one of the driving questions, and we'll get to the abortion topic and sexual preference after this, but one of the big ones was Obamacare. And Democrats trying to pigeonhole Justice Barrett into saying the only reason why you're even getting on the bench is to overturn Obamacare. When we're looking at justices and we're looking at courts throughout the country, do we really have appointees that are out there seeking to overturn, pieces of legislation, and that's their whole goal? Or do we, are these people, I can't believe that we don't have these justices going on there to do their job.
Right. If you're a good judge, then no. That's not, and that's one of the things that Judge Barrett mentioned several times yesterday, is that she's not going on to the court. She didn't go on to the Seventh Circuit with an agenda of, I'm looking to deal with this issue or that issue.
Right.
You deal with the cases that come before you, and you don't go into it with a prearranged policy goal, because you're not a policy maker. And
that's what the liberals who were asking her questions and I know, wait, let's put your disclaimer in there since we are talking politics. Go ahead, Lathan. Disclaimer from First Liberty, which, by the way, donate to First Liberty. How can they donate?
FirstLiberty.org. Right at the top of the page, there's a donate button right next to the button that says get legal help if you need our help. If you have a religious liberty issue, that's the only issue that we litigate. So if we're talking religious liberty, I'm speaking on behalf of First Liberty.
But if
we're talking
switch it
politics,
to politics,
it's the gospel according to John Lathan.
There you go. Yeah. I love it.
Right.
Well, and again, these liberals, I think because their point of view, and this, we're talking the highest court in the land, which is the Supreme Court, but we're talking all the way down to district courts in Dallas County. We're talking, district courts that you guys go and fight for these religious entities.
Certainly. Because
a judge has overstepped, and they've moved from being a judge and acting as such to being a lawmaker, which you don't make. If you want to be a lawmaker, good for you.
Go get
run
elected.
for state rep, run for state senator, run for Congress, run for the United States Senate. That's
Exactly.
great. But if you're a judge, and she kept saying the same thing over and over, and I'm like, first of all, I think they were just all doing their 30-minute speech. But it was like,
Right.
y'all are asking her the same thing, and she's going to keep giving you the same answer. She had no notes. That's in her head and her heart. That's how she.
Well, let's circle
stands
back
as a
around, though,
judge.
right? Let's circle back around to what makes a good justice.
Right. So her mentor, who she clerked for on the Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia, is famous for saying a judge that is happy with the results of every decision he or she makes is not a good judge. You don't decide a case based on what your preferred policy outcome of that case is. You decide the case on the law. The judge's job is to declare what the law is, not what it should be. If you want to make law, like Kathy said, go get elected to the legislature. That's where laws are supposed to be made. The judge's job is to look at a law if it's being challenged and a case comes before them, to look at the law, evaluate the text of that law. Does it comport with the Constitution and the text of the Constitution as it was written and as it was intended? If it does, they will uphold it. If it doesn't, they won't. And if you don't like that outcome, if you're a legislator, then go amend the law. If you're so worried about Obamacare being overturned, then maybe you should have written it in a way that was constitutional.
Right.
And
There you go. There's
So-
that.
she's not going to say, nor should she, that I think the Obamacare law was poorly drafted,
Right.
and does not and should be overturned. She can't say that, because that would signal to people who are litigating that issue that she already has her mind made up.
Right.
Exactly.
Or how
How to
do it.
approach it,
Exactly.
right? So here's, so let's go back to the big question, right? And this is part of the big question, because the answer is the question. What are the major differences between Ginsburg and Barrett, right? One of the things that I see is the biggest one. Ginsburg believed that the Constitution was a living, breathing document, and that it was constantly in fluctuation and should be interpreted as such, right? Barrett doesn't believe that way at all. How much does Barrett have to do or say to get across to these people? She is not rewriting the Constitution. She's treating it as the document that it is. She has said it before she had to go before the Senate. She is saying it now. What does she have to say to convince these people?
Well, I don't think that she can convince them. I think honestly, their real problem is they don't like the way the Constitution is written. That's why they want to say that it's a living document and it can be, interpreted one way in 2020, something completely different than it was adopted, in 1789. If you look over the course of history, when we used to do things according to the Constitution, if you got a ruling you didn't like from the Supreme Court, and they said the Constitution doesn't allow this, then you went and amended the Constitution. If it's really that important to you,
right,
and the Supreme Court says, look, the way the Constitution is written, you can't do this, then you go and you pass a constitutional amendment that says you can.
Right.
And, if you look in the early 20th century, early 1900s, the progressive movement sort of at its zenith then, there were a flurry of constitutional amendments. The Constitution was standing in their way,
right,
and the court said so, and so they went and changed the Constitution. Thank you, Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
And now everybody can agree or disagree whether or not that was a good idea, but that is the process. That it's not supposed to be you don't like this or in order to sort of quote fix things, we put justices on the court who will read the Constitution the way we want it to read. That's
right.
That's not how this, just like the commercial, right? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Right.
If it's truly that important, to the people who have expressed something through their elected representatives, and the Supreme Court says this Constitution says you can't do that, then the people through their representatives pass a constitutional amendment that says, yes, we can.
Right.
One of the things that, before we move on to talking about same-sex marriage and abortion, one of the big things that I find to be most appalling is the fact that you have somebody who has a clean record. There's no college yearbook. There's no scandal in high school. There was no seeking out an abortion on her behalf somewhere as a result of a college faux pas. And so they're now coming at her and it's interesting the way they've chosen to attack her religious beliefs, where she's had to answer the question again yesterday that, no, I'm not going to allow my religious beliefs get in the way of making a ruling. At what point do we realize as a country that Constitution was founded on the principles of God?
Well, those questions about her religious faith in and of themselves are unconstitutional.
Yes.
Article 6
Thank
of the
you very
Constitution
much.
says
Yep.
there is no religious test for public office in this country.
Amen.
And I thought Judge Barrett handled it very, very well. There's a reason that she has judicial temperament and I do not. Right? I would have loved to hear her say, Senator, that question violates Article 6 of the Constitution. I'm not going to answer it.
But she's
right.
got that
I would have
judicial
as well.
temperament, and that's another thing that I was so impressed with her. She did not let anything emotionally rile her one way or the other. There were some folks who said some nice things to her. There were a few. She was, I think one of the papers quoted her as grace under fire, grace under pressure,
Certainly.
which she was. I've never seen anything like it. She was calm, cool, and collected. And that's why I kept saying, wow, talk about judicial demeanor. That's exactly what you want in a judge. Even when Kamala Harris came after her, and she did, and she was rude, just like she was with the debate with Vice President Pence, in my humble opinion. She's like, I'm talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like teacher 101. Don't tell people I'm talking. But I just didn't.
I'm trying to bring.
I didn't see her get super excited. Oh, we can hear you guys still. I didn't see her say anything one way or the other. She was polite. She was calm. All of that knowledge, I loved it, was in her head. I mean, and Senator Cornyn, when he asked this, I thought this was just so brilliant. It was such a great moment. He said, what is written on the notebook in front of you? And she said, the United States Senate. And she held it up, and basically it was a blank page. Of course, there's a million memes out today about what was written in there.
That was a ready-made meme right there.
But it was, it was such a great moment because this is a woman who is so knowledgeable. I looked at her and, as Justice Scalia was always my favorite Supreme Court justice, just admired the man tremendously. And I look at her and I think, my gosh, I think I'm going to go down, and I think she's going to put Justice Scalia as my number 2, because I was just so impressed with how she handled herself, and then her professional life, her life as a professor. Where we talked about last time you were here, the accolades she got from her students were just incredible, which speaks volumes. And then her personal life as a mom and as a wife and as a daughter. I'm so impressed with her. So impressed with her.
And that judicial temperament we're talking about, like to not react to the policy preferences, the obvious preferences of the people who are questioning you.
Yeah.
That's really what you want in a Supreme Court justice. That this decision, that this case that's in front of us, pick the issue, whatever it is. The Constitution, says this, and therefore the outcome is likely going to be that, and that outcome may be extremely unpopular with the American people.
Right.
And you have to be able to do it anyway.
Right.
That's your job. Okay, that's why.
You're right.
That's why the federal judiciary is not elected.
Exactly.
The Supreme Court is, not an elected branch of government. It's their job when the sort of political whims of the people say one thing and they really demand something, but the Constitution doesn't allow it. You have to have backbone enough to tell the people no.
Right.
And then, like I said, if the people really want it bad enough, they will go through their elected officials and amend the Constitution.
Through the right course of action.
Or go back and rewrite a statute in a way that does comport with the Constitution to achieve that policy goal.
And of course, one of the things that is the key on that is we hear Americans complain across the board that lobbyists have a control over D.C. And again, I think the reason why the forefathers wrote the Constitution the way they did and the judicial branch is so that nobody could have control. Only the confirmation process could create an element of control, but nobody else could have access. And so they're open to make the decision based on what is just under the Constitution. Otherwise, you get a Ruth Bader Ginsburg who says, well, the Constitution is a living, breathing document. So we can kind of treat it as such. In 2020, we need this versus what they needed in 1797. And so, I'm glad we keep it that way, for sure.
And let's face it, the Supreme Court justices are human beings, right? Everybody has a need to be liked, okay? But that's not the job. Okay, you have to be able to make some decisions that are likely going to be unpopular with the people. But you can see, speaking of lobbying, you can see when certain issues are coming up before the court, people do try to lobby the Supreme Court. They do it through the New York Times editorial page or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post.
Thank you very much. The liberal media.
They write all of these things saying, what a disaster this would be if the court ruled this way. Or they will praise, say, Justice Roberts for being a moderate and not going to, with the, quote, extreme right wing of the court.
And how could he do that? Because he was appointed by a Republican president. Yep. And then they try to throw it back on us and on the president who appointed him. And that's all... I feel like that's all, that smoke and mirrors. And it takes you away from the real meat of, okay, well, we the people need to have a hard line drawn in the sand on certain issues.
And I wrote an op-ed, speaking of op-eds, I'm not sure when it's coming out yet, but I talked about how the idea of court packing would endanger religious liberty because if the court becomes a political branch and it is just as subject to the whims of the people, then things that are unpopular no longer have any protection. And if you look at you just look at our client list, First Liberty's client list. Coach Kennedy fired for taking a knee and saying a prayer after football games.
Right.
Aaron Melissa Klein bankrupted by the state government because of their religious beliefs on marriage. Just case after case after case where previously traditional religious beliefs are now culturally unpopular.
Right.
That's what the First Amendment is written to protect. When what you want to do or say or believe or live according to those beliefs is no longer popular with the majority, who is going to protect you? And if you turn the Supreme Court into a political body that is also subject to popular opinion, they won't protect you.
Yep.
And she even said yesterday in one of her answers that, when you're talking about free speech, that the First Amendment is most important to protect unpopular opinion.
Right.
That's truly what it is about.
Well, and let's jump to an unpopular opinion, right? Evidently, based on what Democrats have to say or liberals have to say. Let's talk about abortion and the concern that they've conveyed with Roe v. Wade. Of course, that 1973 decision, landmark decision, Justice Barrett didn't call it. She called it it was not a super precedent, but that she's not entering the bench, would not go on the bench with the idea that it needs to be overturned. They asked her, well, your predecessor in Justice Scalia, he believed that it was poorly done and it should be overturned. The Constitution prevails. And as far as I'm concerned, in listening to Justice Barrett speak, that's how she sees it. Is it fair? And I'm not even asking in the context of, well, it's just not fair. That's not what I mean. Is it a fair assessment, essentially, to be concerned with the fact that a justice takes the Supreme Court or takes the bench with the idea, again, of going in to change a certain precedent backwards?
I think the question is, if Roe v. Wade was poorly decided at the time, then it should be. You don't even have to be pro-life to come to the conclusion that Roe v. Wade was a poorly written opinion and a bad decision. So it comes down to, what is your standard for overturning previous cases?
Right.
And there's lots of. I think she has written about it. Scalia wrote about it. And
I think she referenced one of his opinions in that specific line of questioning.
That there's the theory of stare decisis, which comes up usually when people don't want a case that they like to be overturned.
Right.
They say, well, what about stare decisis? Well, stare decisis isn't in the Constitution. That's a legal theory, of interpretation that basically says, a long-standing opinion should be allowed to stand because people have, come to rely upon it, and it's sort of become the law. But if that's the case, if that's an ultimate rule, that once we've ruled on something, we don't ever go back and revisit it,
then what's the point of the Supreme Court being there?
Well, then Dred Scott would still be good law.
There you go. That's a really good point.
How about Plessy versus Ferguson?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, if 9 people got it wrong a long time ago, we should not allow it to continue to be wrong.
Right.
Just because they got it wrong a long time ago, and it's
Right.
been wrong for a long time. The whole thing of, is it a super precedent and all this? I mean, that's smoke and mirrors. It's much ado about nothing. It was either a good decision
what do
or
they
not.
mean by that when they're like, oh, this is a super precedent and blah, blah, and they were acting like that was something that was constitutional? I'm like, I don't think that term's anywhere in the Constitution.
No, it's not. It's one of those.
Is it just like a emotional ploy?
I think it's sort of a legal term of art to sort of categorize certain precedents have been around for a long time, and we have built sort of legal theory and or social or cultural norms around
Right.
it, and therefore if you overturn that, it's just going to be such a social upheaval.
Right.
How could we ever recover or whatever? But again, the standard should be, did they get it right or not? If they didn't get it right, then it should be overturned.
Right. Yep.
So here's the big question, right? And she goes on to answer this, and I'm going to email this over. We've been trying to get my computer. I wanted to get some commentary from her testimony where she basically says, don't politicize me. And so I'm going to carry that into the
Yes.
next question, right? Which is, here we go. She uses the term sexual preference, and a senator gets offended by that.
Oh, like 3 or 4 of them blasted her.
Help me out with that.
And
don't know what to tell you.
She didn't mean any offense. She even
Of course
said that.
not. No, and it was clear. I mean, things like that is where you have to sort of remind yourself that this hearing in and of itself is basically political theater.
Right.
Okay. The R's have the votes. There's no constitutional requirement that they even have a hearing of the Judiciary Committee. They could just move this nomination
That's a
straight
good point.
to the
I
floor
didn't even think about that.
and have a vote.
Right.
So day one, when they were making their statements, it was basically a campaign event.
Right.
I mean, they just made speeches and held up pictures of.
It was for who's running for president next.
Exactly.
And
a lot of the lines of questioning, like by Booker and Mazie
don't
Hirono
get me
and some of
started
the
on
others,
Booker.
was clearly, just campaign language, just trying to make their points, get it on video. He'll probably, cut that into a campaign ad for himself and roll it out, in his home
Yep,
state.
three
or
three
her
years
home
from
state.
now. Yep.
And so a lot of it is, it's just political theater. It's them sort of grandstanding. And, there's part of me that just sort of wishes Graham would have said, you know, I don't think we even need to have this hearing.
Yeah.
We've already confirmed her once.
I was going to say, how long ago was she confirmed
yeah.
for her current position? Not that long ago.
And I think if some people in the hearing room continue along, you know, these sort of unconstitutional lines of questioning or just grandstanding, I would love it if Graham just said, you know what,
We're done.
Enough of this.
Let's
Let's
go to
call
a
the vote
vote.
right now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I can see that coming about, especially after yesterday and the ridiculousness of the sexual preference call out. I'm like, are you people serious?
Well-
Give me a break. You know, I loved the fact that Saturday Night Live had their headliner come out and bash the LGBTQ community. Bash.
Oh, I didn't see. Was this Saturday night?
Yeah, it was hilarious.
I didn't see
It's all
it.
over the news. It's hilarious. He comes out and he bashes the fact that, hey, man, how'd they get a whole month in the summer and black people can't get a full month? They're stuck in February with 28 days. And then he bashes, you know, go out and kill your grandma and your grandpa by not
What?
wearing a mask. This guy offended every bit of the liberal
Was it
palate.
one of the SNL players?
was,
One of
It
their-
was
Bill
Bill
Burr.
Burr. It was Bill
Yeah.
Burr, the comedian out of New York.
Oh, I don't know who that is. Okay.
So I take a screenshot of the news article and I text it to my dad and I said, you got to love it. Liberals eating liberals.
Because that doesn't happen very often, by the way. It's
Oh,
usually,
he went off and it was great.
Wow.
It was great.
I'm gonna have to go back
so
and see
my
that.
question is, at what point, and I think Bill Burr drives home the point here, especially with the reaction of the liberal media, at what point do we realize that political correctness is destroying the institution of the Constitution?
Well, anytime that you seek to use, whether it's political correctness or cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, where your goal is to silence someone with whom you disagree, then you clearly don't understand what the First Amendment means or its importance to our way of life.
Well, let's go to another country where it's not okay to be gay. I mean, we have gay marriage here. In another country, you can't even speak of homosexuality or being a lesbian or anything like that. My goodness, much less go and dress the opposite of what gender you were born as. You would be killed on the streets. So we're so privileged in America. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me, but can we be kind to each other? And this is the question that really set me off, and I want to know what your thoughts were on this. And it was the Senator Hirano out of Hawaii, the Democrat out of Hawaii. She asked whether Amy Coney Barrett, whether the Supreme Court nominee had ever sexually assaulted anyone. I thought that question was so crazy out of line and so rude and so disrespectful. What was the purpose of that? To remind people that Kavanaugh had, this sexual allegation against him? And what was that all about?
If I could if I could explain what goes on in Maisie Hirono's head, I would be a very wealthy man.
We would be the magic 8 ball.
Yeah.
No.
I think, when you're grasping at straws, they're just tossing anything against the wall, hoping something sticks. And that, I think it is sort of a callback to Kavanaugh. But, that's frankly disgraceful. I mean, that is that's the sort of joke we used to make in politics, that that the questions in a debate are, when did you stop beating your wife? Like it's that ridiculous of a question. But she was one of the it was Hirono and Kamala Harris and Feinstein who engaged in some of the worst religious bigotry in committee hearings prior to this against, it was Feinstein that came after Barrett and said, the dogma lives loudly within you, and that's a concern. It was Harris and Hirono who attacked Brian Busher for being in the Knights of Columbus.
Yeah.
Right.
And saying he should.
Well, again, slamming him for being a Catholic, and then and as a person who's Catholic and grew up Catholic and sent my kids to Catholic school, I look back and I'm like, my goodness, have we moved anywhere since JFK was elected? Because remember, you go back and read in history how he was treated because of his religion, and I'm like, here we are, and that was in the 60s. Here we are in 2020, and we're still bashing somebody for being Catholic?
Well, I think she's not the, quote, the right kind of Catholic for them. Okay?
Right.
And here's
The pro-life Catholic who votes for Democrats, which I still don't get that in my church parking lot. Go ahead.
right. So, and and this is where I think a lot of what you heard in the hearing of, can we trust that you can put your personal beliefs aside and yada, yada, yada. It's a lot of projection
Yes.
from their side, okay? Because they want, when they confirm a justice that their party has nominated, they want those beliefs imposed on the rest of the country
Right.
via the courts. That's how they've achieved a lot of the policy that they want when they couldn't get it done through the legislative process.
Right.
And so they look at somebody from the other side and they cannot make the intellectual leap that they won't do that. And so they're worried that Barrett would do what they demand that their nominees do.
Right.
So
That's a
they're-
good point.
They're basically projecting their own way of doing things onto her, and accusing her of of being put on the court for an ideological purpose, which is exactly what they put justices on the court to do.
Correct.
Right.
And that question's having to be answered across the board politically with Biden and Kamala anyways. All right, let's go to the video clipping. This is what I was talking about, where in her part of the testimony, she's saying, I'm not going to be an election pawn. So, Charles, go ahead and let's center that and let's play that. Just, again, a very interesting day yesterday. I was wondering what and how and what they were going to do because, again, I think she's got an impeccable record, an impeccable personal life. This is not a Kavanaugh who can or will be smudged. It's not a Robert Bork. It's not a Clarence Thomas type scenario. And so, again, I just thought it was very interesting. So here we go.
Just days after Justice Ginsburg passed, the president was asked why there was such a rush to fill her seat before the election. And he responded, and I quote, "We need 9 justices. You need that. With the millions of ballots that they," and he meant the Democrats, "are sending, it's a scam, it's a hoax. You're going to need 9 justices." The next day, he told reporters, again, he doubled down, "I think this," and he means the election from the context, "will end up in the Supreme Court. It's very important. We must have 9 justices." Our president has also been asked whether he'll commit to a peaceful transition if he loses the election. He's been asked directly and repeatedly. And instead of responding in the way we'd expect of any leader of the free world, with a clear and simple yes, he's tried to sow confusion and distrust in the potential results. So, Your Honor, I'm concerned that what President Trump wants here couldn't be clearer. That he's trying to rush this nomination ahead so you might cast a decision, a vote in his favor in the event of a disputed election, and he's doing his level best to cast doubt on the legitimacy of an election in which literally millions of votes have already been cast, most of them by mail. I was very encouraged, again, to hear from you specifically. You have not had any conversation with him about this topic, and that's not what I'm suggesting. In fact, you repeated promptly 28 U.S.C. 455. You're quite familiar with the recusal statute and its considerations. But I think the gravamen, the core issue.
I love how they
in
grandstand.
recusal
Don't you love this? It takes
is that any
45
judge
minutes to
or
ask a
justice
question.
should
It's
recuse
worse than
themselves
us.
From a case in which their impartiality might reasonably be
Lathan
questioned.
might say amen. Silence his microphone. Oh, here we go. Nope, maybe
Given
not.
the rush
Silence his microphone. I don't want to hear him say amen to that.
Will you commit to recusing yourself from any case arising from a dispute in the presidential election results 3 weeks from now?
Senator Coons, thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify this because I want to be very clear for the record and to all members of this committee that no matter what anyone else may think or expect, I have not committed to anyone or so much as signaled. I've never even written. I've been in a couple of opinions in the Seventh Circuit that have been around the edges of election law. But I haven't even written anything that I would think anybody could reasonably say, oh, this is how she might resolve an election dispute. And I would consider it, let's see, I certainly hope that all members of the committee have more confidence in my integrity than to think that I would allow myself to be used as a pawn to decide this election for the American people.
Kaboom,
So that
mic
would be
drop.
a question of actual
Exactly.
bias.
Yeah, mic drop. And again,
I'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Well, she will be for sure. So, but the point is that at what point now? I mean, there's no way to dispute that. You're not going to find anything out there. There's no stone that hasn't been unturned. There's not going to be a deep throat out there that's going to come get you out of a parking garage somewhere. At what point do they finally just concede and say, you know what?
Great question.
We're looking bad at this point.
At this point, we're hurting Biden and Harris's chances at the polling places.
She's got all the right answers. Yeah. She's way on target. At what point do they finally back off?
Well, I think the reason you're seeing what you are is because they know they can't stop her from being put on the court. They know they don't have the votes to stop it. And so I think they're just sort of grasping at straws. Like, what do we do? You know, and then, add to that her performance yesterday, just running circles around them. I mean, they didn't lay a glove on her.
It was embarrassing.
I mean, it's so blatantly obvious that she's probably forgotten more about constitutional law than any of those people questioning her could hope to learn. I think they're going to try to just score some political points here and there, and then accept the inevitable.
All right. Well,
how many days till they accept the inevitable? I mean, is there a time specific point in which this gets cut off? If Senator Graham were to let this go, who's the chairman Graham, if he were to let this go up until the end of early voting, or the Friday before the Tuesday election? Okay,
they have a schedule. I haven't looked at it.
Okay.
There's a certain amount of time for questions, and then a scheduled vote.
Okay.
Then now Schumer's making noise about we'll deny them a quorum, and then they won't be able to vote. But as I said before, you don't even have to have this hearing to confirm justice.
Yeah, you don't need it.
And here's something just to keep in mind. The Democrats have painted themselves into this corner by their own actions.
Right.
Okay, they were the ones that eliminated the filibuster for judicial nominees, and they were warned at the time. If you do this, it's going to have repercussions when you're no longer in the majority of the Senate and hold the White House, and you're going to have to deal with it. And they went ahead and did it anyway. They're the ones who tried to destroy Robert Bork. And did, frankly. And they're the ones who tried to destroy Clarence Thomas, tried to destroy Judge Kavanaugh. And they have politicized this process for decades. And they have eliminated basically all their legitimate means of opposition. And so they're left with this. I mean, it's their own fault. They painted themselves into this corner, and now they're having to live with the results.
Right.
Well, Lathan, stick with us. Can you stay with us to the show? All right. We've got James Sellers now joining us, CEO of Sightmark. Good morning, James. Oh, we can't hear him. There he is.
How is everybody doing today?
Good morning to you.
Well, we're kicking the dog around here.
we're all kinds of controversial.
Crazy time in this country. It's every morning you never know what's going to happen. So it's been quite keeping us on our toes. We have to always be ready for the unexpected in this day and age. So here we are.
Well, James, you and I have been friends for 30 plus years now. And we have talked politics, and we've kicked the dog around a few times. What's your take on all this? I mean, we've had Lathan in here. Lathan has really given us some good insight from a legal standpoint with the Supreme Court. You're a conservative. I mean, what's your take on all this with the Senate and with questions and with Justice Barrett?
Well, it is too bad. And I think one of the things that it kind of highlights is kind of how much our education system has failed for so long if we have people in office that don't understand the Constitution and due process. So I think the highlight here is we have people that we've elected that are really unqualified to even be sitting in that seat. And a lot of good folks, I think, are staying out of politics for that same reason. It's lost substance. And unfortunately, we have a judicial hearing process to get a new Supreme Court justice that's not really addressing jurisprudence in the way it was intended by our framers, the Constitution. That's a pretty fundamental mistake. We kind of jumped off the tracks here a little bit.
Well, and James,
what do you guys think?
Well, we trust me.
Very well said. We're all nodding. Yes.
We've just went from the dog to kicking the pig now. I mean, you're absolutely right on that deal.
Is that a thing?
Oh, gotcha. You've never heard that?
Kicking the pig?
Yeah, get out there and kick the pig. Yeah,
like the pigskin, like the football?
Yeah.
No.
Why would you kick a pig?
Okay, Kathy.
Oh, no. Okay.
So
after the show conversation.
Right. This is after the show conversation. So, James, a lot of politics going on. We're 3 weeks out before the election. You are in the industry of firearms and pieces and parts that go on become a part of a firearm. And What does an election like this look like for a businessman like you? I mean, you run a very successful business. You've built it from the ground up. What's that look like for you? I mean, what are your feelings and thoughts 3 weeks out from Election Day?
Yeah. Well, the sad truth is the more uncertainty, craziness that is going on in the political space, and people become scared and afraid. In a certain part of our industry, it creates a lot of interest in consumption. I get asked this question a lot. I would trade a strong, healthy, secure, stable America where there's opportunity for everybody, and that the people that work hard are the ones that rise to the top, and the great ideas come forth, and we build a stronger, better country. I would much rather have that than an unprecedented number of back orders and people wanting to buy our products. So in the business side, it is good for business, but I would rather know that my business will exist 5 years from now, that we won't be in an environment that's so bad for all businesses that business owners decide it's not worth working anymore, that we're done. It'd be nice to know that 5 years from now, if I develop and invest in technologies and products, that'll be legal for citizens in this country to buy it. But there's a lot of fundamental issues at stake in this election cycle. It's quite extraordinary.
So how do you express your views without being pegged? And I'm talking from a business standpoint, not even a political standpoint. How do you express your views to other people out there in the community to understand that we have liberty at stake without being pegged as some crazy, wild-eyed gun owner?
Yeah, that's a good question. As an owner of a company, my first and foremost, thing is to make sure we protect our employees, provide good products. So that's first. The other thing is, as a citizen, I encourage everybody to be involved in the process, to become informed, know about the issues, know how they impact your life, and not just now, but those impacts, those policies played out over the years and decades. A lot of things just don't work. They sound great on paper, they just don't work. So our involvement as far as trying not to be a crazy gun owner, I think it really comes down to a respect of other people's rights, and realize that you should protect the interests and rights of other people insofar that doesn't encroach on yourself. So if you want to look at a life and a scenario in a society where everyone's civil and respectful, talk to people that value other people's opinions, listen to them, and actually say that they have a voice that matters. They can have a different opinion on religion or social issues. They can go like to shoot guns, as long as they're not hurting other people. And the one thing that we're all, I would say the gun owners are, if you want somebody you can count on, that you can have your back, go talk to a gun owner. These are the type of people who work hard and sacrifice, and they're volunteering, every day, and they're donating money to causes they care about. They're not just talking the talk, they walk the walk. So I think the crazy gun owner is a little bit of a misnomer. I think from my experience, if I ever wanted somebody that I could count on that would protect me and protect my life and protect my family, protect this country, it's the gun owner. So I think in some ways we need more of that. We need more people to actually know how to use a firearm, how to protect themselves. And I think that is actually, I think the reality is opposite of what you've been seeing in the media.
James, how do we go about and get the message out 3 weeks before the election? Is it in mail? Is it calling your friends? How do you, as a business owner, do you contact other business owners to make sure that we are voting for a candidate that is going to support the American way?
Yeah. As an owner of a company, we try to stay out of politics to a certain degree. I mean, we don't endorse candidates. We don't, I'm not out there in the political arena as the owner of this company. And it's because there's other people here. What I do think is, this is my take, is not say, go vote for this candidate. I want to have people think for themselves again. I think one of the things this country has lost the ability to do is to discern what's fact and fiction.
Amen.
These concerns about fake news, it's so obvious this stuff is not real. It doesn't make sense. So if people are persuaded by the media and these ridiculous lies and distortions of truth, that's a problem. We need to teach each other how to think again. I would say that I challenge people to dig deeper, do their own research, and then if that doesn't seem logical, then don't believe it. And if something's too good to be true, if you're getting stuff for free from the government and there's no downside to it, obviously, there's more to that story. We know nothing's for free.
Amen to that too.
So just to shift a little bit, any new cool stuff coming out for our guns?
Well, right now, our cool stuff we're trying to get for the guns is just inventory to ship out to folks. Right now, a lot of folks are concerned about their safety in lieu of these cities where the police are no longer able to provide basic public safety and security. People want to make sure their family's protected, and I absolutely think they have a right to do that. So a lot of folks right now are trying to get good, good ways to defend their families. So looking at like shotguns and pistols are really popular. AR-15s continue to be top seller in the country. With that, people are looking for things that are going to be able to make them more accurate, more safe around their home. So a couple of things I would just point out in that regard. Yeah, we have laser sights that, people use on their pistols to help with training and practice. But also, if you have a perpetrator, somebody's coming into your home, if they have a laser dot on them, I think you might be able to get them to wait for the cops to go arrest that person. Red dots allow people to shoot more accurately. So it's really important, if you are defending yourself, and I hope no one ever has to defend themselves or their family from a person that's hell-bent on hurting them or killing them, we want them to be accurate and then successfully either subdue or stop that aggression, or if the worst comes, I'd be able to stop that person permanently and do so without having anybody else get hit and hurt. As we've seen in those situations, things happen so fast. Training and good equipment is really pivotal.
So it's hunting season, and it's time to go out and grab some hogs. Do you have some cool stuff to help zero in on that hog and make a good shot so you're not chasing them for 4 miles?
Absolutely. So, one of the things about our company, SiteMark, is we have a sister brand, another brand that separate brand that does different things. Both do different things for different parts of the market. SiteMark is more about outfitting sights and scopes and laser sights and digital rifle scopes for hunting and shooting. And one of SiteMark's best products right now is called the Wraith. And the Wraith is designed as a full color day scope, but it allows people to hunt at night as well. So they're taking out hogs in record numbers in Texas. There are so many opportunities to hunt hogs, and there's so many good places to go. And those farmers need you out there. So if anybody knows a farmer and their fields are getting wrecked by hogs, it is so much fun. And grab a Wraith, get a rifle, get some buddies, go out there and help be part of the solution. Pulsar is a thermal company, and they have the best thermal in the world. And if you want to engage and see targets out to a mile, well, you want to shoot a mile, but you can see animals a mile away and then safely target them with thermal. And that allows you to be able to do even more and more effectively at longer distances.
So how do people go find you to buy that?
A lot of good things. What's that, John?
How do you get people to find you to go buy that? The Wraith, man, that sounds
Tell
way cool.
him
Sounds
to
awesome.
point to
Come
where
to
the
our website.
pulsar is
Yeah.
above.
Check us out at www.sitemark.com and www.pulsarnv.com. And that's where you'll see all the latest, greatest optics for hunting, shooting, home security, as well as hog hunting and coyote hunting. So check us out. We'd love to have you out in the field and can't wait to hear about your success.
Point to your right shoulder and say, go to this website. Point to your right. Just
Chuck
point.
loves this,
No,
James.
the other
Go to
one.
sitemark.com.
Your other one. There you go.
And then
Well,
He's got it on the board. He's got it on the
Oh,
screen.
he's got it
see?
on the screen.
He
it's
likes
got
to
it next to
point
your
at it.
name. You just say point down.
He likes to show off his
Point
technology.
down to the-
So, James, I tell you, the crew wants to know if we can put like a shooting day together and bring the crew out and
That would
shoot
be a
out at your place.
blast.
we'd love that. Absolutely. And let's set a time and have you guys come out. We'd
That'd be a
love to
blast.
Shoot
show
some
you
hogs.
some of the all sorts of things.
Yeah, they're dying. They're like, you got to get with James. We want to go out to his place and shoot. And I said, all right, I'll talk to him.
Can't wait. Yeah, we can do some reactive target stuff. We can do some night hunting. So if you have time for hog hunting, we can arrange that. We've been out to Creston, Texas, where we've shot over a mile using our long distance advanced night rifle scopes. So we'd love to have you join the Mile Club and also join the most popular growing part of hunting sports, which is night hunting with hogs in Texas. So
All right, James, you've opened the door now. The crew is going to start blowing me up.
do it. All right.
We've got
we'll make it happen. Can't wait to see you out there.
We've got several retired police officers and ex-military.
Military, we've got
So,
all kinds of folks ready to go.
yeah, all right, you've opened the door. I'm just letting you know.
Can't wait to see you guys.
All right. Hey, James, thanks for joining
James.
us as usual. We'll see you again next
All right,
month.
thank you. It's a pleasure. Sounds great. Have a good day.
You too,
Good
James.
stuff,
Take care.
you.
All right. So, Lathan,
Bye-bye.
you ready to go do some hog hunting?
Bring it.
I have to say, as a native Arkansan and by birth
Oh, look at
Razorback fan, it hurts my heart a little bit.
That is your
kill a bunch
alma
of
mater's
wild hogs.
mascot.
Well, I'll tell you what. Have one run up beside your
Oh
vehicle.
no, I totally understand why they have to be taken care of. Yeah.
I mean, there's something else. I've seen them, boy. Then some on the King Ranch down
Yeah.
in South. Whoa.
Yeah.
I mean,
They'll
those guys are
and they'll
huge.
tear up a farmer's field.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
2,000-pound hogs down there.
Whew,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, running around.
golly.
And they'll tear you up.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yes.
yes, yes,
away.
yes.
Well, and they'll eat you. I
Yeah.
mean, they have no problem.
That's the reason we chose it as our mascot. That's a tough animal.
Well, we're gonna.
It's not a little pot-bellied pig, y'all. just,
So,
just.
I'm going to have you take your First Liberty hat off.
Okay.
And we're going to put your.
Oh, I
Lathan
think you
Watts
already
hat.
kind of took that off a little while ago.
Well, we've been talking Supreme. We kept him within his.
The line gets blurred. That's
It
all
does a
right.
little bit,
Yeah.
but we're going to blur it big time now. And in fact, I'm going to turn the show over to you and Kathy here in a few minutes. Let you finish out the last 10 minutes. I've got a call I'm going to take with Colleen ISD here.
Oh, good luck.
So thank you
Little
for that.
truancy talk?
Little truancy talk. That's right. COVID-19 has definitely created more issues with attendance and going to school.
ADA is still being counted.
Yes, it
there
is.
are still dollars attached to it.
So, Lathan, let's now shift over to the campaign.
yeah.
Good.
Right. So again, we're talking to Lathan Watts at this point,
Right.
Attorney at law. But you know,
Former young Republican.
Yeah.
biggest thing that's come out now is Fauci and the president going at odds with his rally in, I think it's Iowa, if I'm not mistaken, at the airport. They're expecting 10,000 Trump people to show up. And Fauci's like, we shouldn't be doing this. You should cancel these events. We're 3 weeks before an election. Are we supposed to cancel our entire political process over a virus?
No.
And that's the easy answer to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it
exactly.
is what it is.
And I think that's been Trump's response is one of us here is the president,
Well,
and it's not you, Mr. Fauci.
well, and it's interesting that you've got people trying to, well, like you, I'm going to use your terminology from earlier, grandstand, and make it all about them, make it all about their political philosophy, when and not even giving President Trump the courtesy of, during a debate, referring to him as President Trump. I mean, the blatant disrespect, it's you can't deny it.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the rallies and he shouldn't do these. I mean, then let's be consistent, okay? Then 10,000 people can show up shoulder to shoulder in Portland or Seattle or Wisconsin or D.C. And protest whatever they want to protest. But then when somebody from the other side of the spectrum holds a rally,
Right.
No, we should stop doing these. Well, it's either a threat or it isn't.
Exactly. So if you can gather together in support of the reelection of a president, like you said, shoulder to shoulder, some people wearing masks, some people not.
Right.
People also knowing if I've got a health issue, if I have a family member or somebody close to me who has a health issue, probably not the best idea for me to go. But then, then why? You're right. But then it's okay to go and spray horrific graffiti on churches, on businesses, on people's homes, to throw bricks through windows, to set businesses on fire, to loot and steal from private sector companies. Again, the hypocrisy is deafening.
Yeah, and this is where it gets back to sort of my day job, right?
Right.
I mean, this is the reason the founders protected the role of religion in a civil society, is that they understood you can't have freedom without morality.
Yes.
If you can't have the freedom to assemble, to petition the government for redress of your grievances,
Right.
unless you have the morality to not burn down another person's business,
Right.
to not attack a public building, to not loot and steal and take things that don't belong to you. If you don't have that sort of morality, then you cannot be trusted with the freedom to assemble and petition the government.
Well, and again, if it's against the law, it's against the law.
Right.
And you can, veil it and say, oh, but that's a protest. No, I've done protesting. I've done counter protesting. I have never screamed an obscene word. I've never had some misuse of "you're number one," but with the wrong finger. Right. I got a couple of those during the Trump train parade the other day. I've never, harmed anyone's property, stolen anything.
Because
I don't
that's
get
not
it.
a protest.
That's not at
That's
that
a
point.
crime.
That's it, exactly. So I don't understand why the opposition party is allowed to say, well, this is all the First Amendment protected. Well, crime's not protected by the First Amendment.
No, it's not. And the First Amendment exists, the free speech clause, and I mean all of the clauses, the free exercise of religion, the establishment clause, the stuff that we deal with. That's all written to protect you from the government.
Right.
It is not
Right.
to protect you from the consequences of your own actions.
Exactly.
So if you want to call it a protest, but you're throwing a brick through a window and walking out with a bunch of jewelry, you can call it a protest if you want, but the police should show up and arrest you for damage of property and theft.
But then in some of these cities where that's happening, they're defunding massive portions of the police.
Right. Or you have a DA like in Dallas who says, I'm not even going to prosecute people for stealing
Right.
something less than $750.
And I'm like, well, okay, but if somebody steals something from me and it's $500, that hurts my family. So
Absolutely.
I don't get that.
And
it just doesn't make sense.
And this is where, when you cannot rely on the criminal justice system to protect you, that actually it's a very, very slippery slope, because that's when you start to see people take the law into their own hands.
Yes.
If they believe that the police, either because they've been defunded or have been instructed to stand down,
Yep.
or that the DA has said, I'm not going to prosecute this sort of stuff, so the police are like, well, then what do we?
Right.
Why should we waste our time, and risk our own lives trying to cuff this guy?
Right.
That's when you start to see people take the law into their own hands, and that's not good for a free civil society.
It's not good for anyone. And then all of a sudden, we have pictures like we saw in Chicago and in Portland and DC and these different places where it doesn't look like America anymore, and that's what's frightening to me. We're very fortunate. Next Wednesday, when we do our political discussion, we've got a lady who is a dentist from Venezuela who's going to come on and talk about, y'all don't want America to go the way of Venezuela, and she's even still got family back over there. If I'm not misunderstanding her story, we celebrate these freedoms, and if it's kind of like when you're a kid and your parents are like, okay, I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. You're a dad of two. Sure. I know I've told my kids, hey, you know what? You do this. These are your privileges, but they get taken away one by one. As you break the rules. So that's what the law does for us. And if you're a law-abiding citizen, absolutely, you've got all the freedoms in the world to go out. I have no problem. Like there was a group of Biden-Harris supporters that have been out every weekend. I know, Charles, you saw them a couple of weekends ago. I saw them weekend before last. About 10 to 15 people who are supporting Biden-Harris, and they're waving their signs, and a couple of people have American flags, and they're registering people to vote. Okay, sure. I drove past them after we took my dog to the vet the other day and, gave them a thumbs up. I'm not voting that way. Sure. I'm doing my own campaigning for the Republican Party. But I was like, hey, good for them. You know what? They're out there doing the same thing I'm doing, just for the opposite candidate. Awesome, good for them. But then when you've got people in a Biden parade of sorts in Collin County the other day, there were teenagers and young adults jumping out of trucks on their parade route to steal Trump Pence signs. Okay, I'm not okay with that. Stay in your car, wave your signs, but don't go and steal something off of somebody's property.
Yeah, and it just gets to the basic respect for the process and respect for other individuals. Like if you want your right to express your political opinions to be respected and protected, then you have to be willing to do that for other people, even the ones with whom you disagree.
And that's okay if we disagree.
Exactly. I mean, that's the bedrock of our political system. So again, it gets back to you have to have a certain level of morality, of a common understanding of what is right and wrong in a society,
right,
in order to be able to live in a free society. That's why, John Adams said our Constitution was written for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other, because he knew.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And you're seeing the result of that now. When a culture has sort of abandoned any sort of objective moral standard, and that's not that doesn't necessarily have to be a religious teaching, but an objective moral standard. But that has been traditionally the role of religion
in our country,
in a free society.
You mentioned something, and I think this is an important part because I guess you can be an atheist, or you can be, what's that, secular humanism, or what?
Right.
What, there's something like that, but you can still be a moral person. You can still say, you know what, I'm a law-abiding citizen who's going to be decent to my fellow man.
Sure.
Normally it is through the teachings from your religion that comes to be, the morality comes to be. But and then there's morality where people are doing something that harms themselves. But when you take it to the point where it's harming other people,
right,
that's where somebody has to say, hey, not in America.
Yeah, exactly. There have to be some standards that apply, to all of us.
Right.
Which is, not to get too far down in the weeds, but, federalism as enshrined in the Constitution, I mean, when they adopted it, they knew that life in New York in 1780s was very different than life in Georgia in the 1780s.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
People who want to live the way people live in Georgia live in Georgia. The people who want to live the way they live in New York live in New York.
Right.
There are a few things that should be the same throughout the country.
Right.
Those very few things are what theoretically the federal government was supposed to be in charge of. Now it's gotten to the point where we have people trying to impose what they want and the way they live in their state on the entire rest of the country via the federal government.
But like that whole nanny state mentality kind of a thing,
I had this conversation with somebody last night. If California wants to turn their state into a third world communist hellhole, then that's basically
that's their gig.
Exactly. But you do not then get to go via the federal government and come take my tax dollars to bail you out for it. There's a few things that should be the same everywhere.
Right.
And that's the few things that the federal government should do and do well and be in charge of. Everything else is, via the 9th and the 10th Amendment, left to the states.
States' rights, absolutely.
And it's okay.
Very well said.
Life can be different in Texas than it is in Maine or California.
And that's okay. And again, you've got that choice to move to the state of your, exactly. Oh, I love that, vote with. Hashtag that. That's good stuff. Well, let's close up the show with talking about high voter turnout. Did you get a chance to vote yesterday?
I did. I went and voted yesterday. And
Were you in a line?
A little bit, but it moved fairly quickly and got in and out pretty easily. There's a lot of locations, and one pretty close to my house, so I was able to get it done. And I was just when I was waiting to come on here, I saw a post from I live in Denton County from Judge Eads that the turnout yesterday was, I think, double the turnout of the first day from 4 years ago.
Well, and I tell you, I've got some numbers. Dallas County was a little over 59,000 that voted yesterday during the first day. Tarrant County, a little over 42,000. Collin County, a little over 39,000. Denton County, a little over 35,000. So there are definitely some higher numbers. There was at the Richardson Civic Center, there, as long as you're in line before the polls close, say either at 5 or 7 or whatever day it is, whatever time they close, you're allowed to vote that same day, as long as you were in that line, ready to vote, ready to present your ID and everything beforehand. They had folks who were there like 2 or 3 hours afterwards. So what I'm wanting to encourage people is go to your county's website, either your county party or your county elections website, and you can get, and a lot of them, like for example in Collin County, we've got red and green little markers that say the wait time is so much here, so much there. Right. So, there are places where nobody's going to vote. And then there are places where everybody's lining up to vote.
And during early voting, you can go to any of those places. If you vote on election day, you have to go to your precinct.
And now it depends on the county on that, because some of them now are. I know in Collin County, I know you can still vote in the Some of the counties are doing the super polling places or polling centers. Yeah. And we encourage you to go out and vote early, because I would imagine lines are going to be really long on election day. But get out, and I think now more than ever, and I know we've said that, and you and I we've been friends for 25 plus years, and we're in Young Republicans together and have gone to gubernatorial swearing-ins together, and knocked on tons of doors together. And I know we say this this literally is a pivotal election for our country, don't you think?
Yeah, I've always said that the most important election in American history is the next one.
There you go.
Always.
There you go.
Because
yeah.
every time there's an election, you have a chance to change, who's in office,
Right.
change policy preferences, change the course of the country.
Of history.
So the most important election, it's always the next one.
But this one really is. Let's say that.
I would say it's in my life, I've not seen the parties and their agendas so starkly contrasted as they are
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Well, Lathan Watts, thanks. I think he's doing a big close-up on you. Lathan, as always, from First Liberty, and please go and donate money to First Liberty. They protect our religious freedoms of all religions here in America. Just a phenomenal organization. Thank you so much, and we love it when you get to take your hat off and become political again. So good times. But thank you so much for closing the show up with us and talking about our next Supreme Court justice. And everybody have a blessed day. We'll see y'all Friday. We've got one of our Miss Texas ambassadors who will be coming on the show, and also flags of honor from the Plano East Rotary. So super excited about Friday. Love y'all. Have a blessed day. Go vote. Go vote.